Okay, so this quilt was created by Ellen Heath, who is pictured right here. She is the leader of the Courthouse Quilters. I don't know what her exact title is, but she's in charge of the group. And I loved this picture, this quilt at first, because it has the pictures on it of all her family members, her mother, her grandmother, her daughter. But the part that I thought was very interesting to me was that she had the names and then the ages that each one of them were when they were able to first vote. So her grandmother first voted in 1921 at the age of 40, and we can deduce not for the lack of wanting to or being apathetic to voting, because of course in 1921 was the first time that she was able to vote, and she was 40 years old. And then even that Ellen herself and her mother only voted when they were 21, because I forget that the voting age has changed. To me, I'm like, well, I was 18 and 18 is the voting age. No, of course, 21, and then her daughter got to vote at age 18. So I just love that the ages are on the bottom of this quilt.
This pair of quilts. The quilter was given these crazy quilt scraps. So the background quilting patchwork is called crazy quilting, and these were scraps from another quilt that someone gave her that she just picked up. So what she decided to do was to cut out a silhouette of Susan B. Anthony and a silhouette of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and superimpose them over the crazy quilt scraps. This crazy quilt was unfinished. Someone had been working on the embroidery and had left this string hanging. And so her idea was that life, of course, is like a crazy quilt where everything's all kind of put together, mishmash. And the idea that, and it also represents traditional women's work, what the expectations were of what women are supposed to be in society. And then Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton being superimposed on top, being the idea that they rose above what was traditional women's work. And then the unfinished string connecting the two of them because they both died before their work was finished. This represents the suffrage flag, which after the amendment, which by the way was written by Susan B. Anthony all those years ago, was actually passed by the House and the Senate, it needed to be ratified by the correct percentage of states to become an amendment. So the battle shifted from getting it passed through the House and Senate to the individual states where it was likely to be ratified. Alice Paul led that charge. She was the recognizable leader of that movement at the time. And they had a publication called The Suffragist. It's called the Women's Political Union, I think. Had a publication called The Suffragist, and they wanted a really powerful cover photo that would influence, in a big way, that effort to get the states to ratify. So it was her idea, along with her propaganda marketing people, to stage a photograph of her sewing stars on the suffrage flag, a la Betsy Ross. So they call it Betsy Ross for suffrage. That photo of her sewing the stars on the flag. And that really was meant to portray the idea that if women get the vote, they'll still be women, they'll still take care of the home, they'll still sew, nothing's going to change, gender roles won't change. They really were trying to promote that. And after that went out, in the states where they were really battling, they had photos taken of the leaders of the suffrage movement in that state in the same position to use for propaganda. So this is a really famous photograph for suffrage. You see it a lot, but to understand that it wasn't just an accident, that it was absolutely thought out and planned out to influence, that it was absolutely meant to be an influence is really cool.